The Appalachian Mountains are among the oldest on the earth. Geologists tell us that they are crumbling and shrinking with age. But for those who wander too deep into the hollers, the mountains don't feel like they're dying. They feel like they're learning. We've all heard the warnings. Stay on the trail. Don't hike alone. And above all, if you hear a voice you don't recognize from a place it shouldn't be, don't answer it. Most people laugh at those rules. They think it's just a local flavor meant to spook the tourist. But David wasn't a tourist. He knew these trails. He knew the sound of the brush. But on a crisp September morning, when the sky turned gray and his friends bailed on a planned hike, David found out that the woods had a very long memory and a very specific way of playing back the things we say. I want to take you into that forest now. I want you to feel the damp earth underfoot and hear the snap of the branches behind you. This is a story of what happens when the uncanny valley comes to life, and why some missing person cases are better left unsolved. I'm Van Holsing, and you're listening to Life, the Universe, and Everything in Between. I had plans to hike the Appalachians with my friends Mark and John. It was late September, and the forest was already starting to blaze with autumn colors. You know, vivid yellows, fiery oranges, and deep reds. It was the perfect time, neither too hot nor too cold to be out in the mountains. I was the first to arrive. The sky, though, was starting to look a bit ominous. Dark clouds rolling in, heavy and low, but I wasn't about to let that keep me inside. I'd been cooped up for weeks, and I needed fresh mountain air. About 10 minutes in, both Mark and John texted me. They were bailing. They checked the weather, and it didn't look good. What a bunch of wimps, I thought, but I shrugged it off. I headed to the park entrance where the ranger gave me the usual spiel. How many in a vehicle? Here's your map. Don't litter. But then he paused, looked me right in the eyes, and said something I didn't expect. He told me to stay on the trail. If I heard someone call my name, not to answer. That struck me as odd. I hiked these trails a dozen times, never had a problem. Maybe he was trying to spook me. Still, he glanced at the sky again, worry etched in his face. Are you sure you want to do this alone? He asked. I gave him a snarky smile, raising my arm to wave off his concern. Yeah, I'm not afraid of a little rain, I said, and I drove through. I walked for about 20 minutes, taking in the quiet beauty of the forest. The trail was well worn, one I traversed a dozen times, yet it never felt old. I hadn't seen another hiker all morning, probably because of the weather, but so far the rain held off. The air was sweet and crisp, carrying out the faint, earthy scent of decaying wood from the fallen trees. The ground was slightly damp from the previous night's rain, soft underfoot, but not muddy. In the distance, I could hear an occasional snap of a branch, sharp and deliberate, likely some animal making its way towards the brook. Each sound, each smell made the forest feel alive, but it reminded me that I was very much alone. That's when I first heard it.
David.
Someone was calling my name from behind. It sounded exactly like Mark. I spun around, but there was nothing. Just the empty trail and trees swaying in the wind. Mark? I called, my voice slightly tighter than I intended. Silence answered me. Only the distant rustle of leaves somewhere far off and another branch snapping. Probably just an animal or another hiker catching up, I told myself. I waited a few minutes, then pulled out my phone. No signal. Great. Maybe they had actually decided to come after all. My heart beat a little faster. The clouds shifted and sunlight finally broke through, streaking through the trail warm gold. I took it as a small sign, a reminder to keep moving forward, and started walking again. Though, every now and then a snap and rustle behind me made me glance over my shoulder. After a couple of steps, I heard it again.
Over here.
I stopped, starting to feel very annoyed. I'm not waiting, I shouted. You guys texted me that you were bailing, so if you want to hang, you're just going to have to catch up. I glanced over my shoulder. The trail behind me was empty. The trees swayed in the wind, their branches creaking, and somewhere in the distance, a branch snapped. Another step. We're just the forest settling. It was in that moment I remembered the ranger's strange, ominous warning. Don't answer back. I froze, my words still hanging in the air. Then the voice called again, hesitant, stretching my name like it was tasting the syllables.
David.
Every instinct screamed at me to keep walking, to ignore it. But my feet felt rooted to the trail. The forest around me seemed to hold its breath, the rustling leaves and snapping branches suddenly seeming louder. Something wasn't right. That wasn't Mark. That couldn't be Mark.
D-Day! Help!
My heart jumped. That sounded like John. John? Are you guys trying to mess with me? I shouted, panic creeping in. But then the voice changed. Warped. Unfamiliar. Pleading in a tone I didn't recognize.
Help me!
It sounded like a woman. My stomach twisted. The forest, which had felt calm just minutes ago, now seemed alive with unseen eyes. The trail was empty. No Mark. No John. No one. But something was calling my name, learning it, taunting me.
Over here.
It added, soft this time, dragging the syllables as if testing me. I froze. Every instinct screamed at me not to move toward it, but the sound pulled at my attention, impossible to ignore. The shadows between the trees seemed to deepen, twisting with the wind, and the voice whispered again,
David. Over here.
I hesitated, my pulse hammering. Then the voice came again. I'm not waiting, it repeated, almost exactly like me, with the same sharp edge of frustration I'd used just moments ago. My stomach lurched. That was my voice, but it wasn't me.
You guys, you texted me that you were bailing.
It echoed, dragging out the words just like I had. The sound made my skin crawl. I had spoken them aloud only a minute ago, and something was mocking me, repeating my tone, my own frustration. Over here, it added, perfectly mimicking my inflection, the way I'd naturally pause, as if it had learned not just my words, but how I sounded saying them. I swallowed hard. The trail behind me was empty. Trees swayed, shadows stretching long, and each snap of a branch sounded closer, deliberate. Whatever this was, it wasn't human, and it knew me. I did the only thing I could think of. I ran, harder and faster than I ever had before. My lungs burned, my legs screamed, but I didn't dare slow down. I had decided to cut through the woods, hoping to make it back to the main road. The brush was still thick, but the plants were starting to thin for winter, letting me push through. Branches clawing at my arms and face, roots tugging at my boots. Every few steps I heard it, a sharp snap behind me, another, then another. Twigs breaking under some unseen weight. My heart hammered in my chest. I didn't dare look back, but the sound followed me relentlessly, matching my pace, keeping time with my racing heartbeat. Then I heard it again, my own voice, warped and trailing, coming from just beyond the trees.
Dave, over here.
Then I did something really stupid. I turned my head to look back. In that split second, my foot caught on something, and I went down hard. Face first into the damp forest floor. Pain shot through me, and panic gripped my chest. My first thought, it had grabbed me. But what I saw made my stomach twist even more. I had stumbled upon what looked like an old campsite. A gray, dilapidated tent lay in tatters, its fabric shredded and sagging, the bare poles jutting out like broken bones. 3 backpacks were scattered around, sun-bleached and cracked with age, and I had tripped over a fire ring, blackened and crumbling. Whoever had been there hadn't touched this place in years, maybe decades. Then I heard it again, the same voice.
Help me!
And before I could even process it, a scream tore through the forest, ear-piercing, raw, and filled with pain that made my blood run cold. It wasn't just a voice this time. It was a sound that meant to shatter my bones. The shadows around me deepened, and the air felt heavy as if the forest was leaning in to listen. I scrambled backward, heart hammering, unsure whether to run or stay frozen. It was a pure fight or flight moment, and I had nothing to fight with. So I forced myself up, my body screaming from the fall, and ran. I ran harder and longer than I ever thought possible, each step pounding through my legs, lungs burning, arms clawing at branches that snagged my clothes. The forest around me seemed alive, shadows stretching and twisting, each snapping branch echoing like a threat. Then, finally, I burst through the thick brush onto the road. The sudden openness felt almost unreal after the claustrophobic crush of the trees. My chest heaved, sweat stinging my eyes, and my legs wobbled beneath me. But for the first time in what felt like forever, I could breathe without fear of pressing down on me. The voice didn't follow, or at least, I couldn't hear it here. For a moment, I allowed myself to believe I was safe. I tried to get my bearings and spotted a mile marker. Relief washed over me. I wasn't far from where I had parked. I crouched for a moment, gasping, trying to catch my breath, my heart still hammering in my chest. Then I pushed myself up and booked it towards my car, every step fueled by adrenaline, my legs aching but moving faster than I thought possible. The road stretched out ahead, open and safe compared to the suffocating forest I had just escaped. I got into my car and locked the doors, my hands still shaking. My phone buzzed. 2 notifications, one from Mark, one from John. Both said the same thing. It looked like the rain was going to pass over, and they wished they had come after all. I started the car, heart still racing, and glanced in the rearview mirror as I prepared to back up. That's when I saw something. I don't know what it was, and I can't even describe it properly. It was bipedal, but its arms were far too long, swinging almost to the ground. Its height? It was taller than anything I'd seen in the woods, and its face, if it even had one, was impossible to make out. There was just a mouth, that's all. If Slender Man was real, I'd say this thing was a gray-skinned version of him, standing there, motionless, watching me from the edge of the tree line. It felt almost impossibly wrong. Every instinct at me screamed to drive away, but for a moment I couldn't move. My fingers froze on the wheel, my breath caught in my throat. I heard it again, faint and muffled, my own voice, repeating the words I'd yelled earlier.
Help me over here.
It wasn't coming from inside the car, not really, but from somewhere deeper in the forest, distorted and twisted. That sounded like me, but it was wrong, warped, and echoing off the trees in a way that didn't feel natural. Without thinking, I slammed the car into gear and took off toward the ranger station, hoping someone there could make sense of this. My hands trembled on the wheel, and every shadow in the trees made me flinch. When I finally reached the ranger, I spilled everything. The voice, the old campsite, the torn tent, the sun-bleached backpacks. The ranger frowned, listening quietly. "Campers have gone missing out here before," he said slowly, glancing back towards the forest. "We never found them." "And you answered the call?" Typical human curiosity. He shook his head, a slight smirk on his face. "You're lucky to be alive. I'm glad you made it back." I sank against the car, still trembling. The image of that gray, faceless creature burned into my mind. The campsite, the broken fire ring, the shredded tent. It all made sense now. Someone, or something, had been out there for a long time before me, waiting, watching, and learning. I later found out that the 3 hikers who had gone missing 15 years ago were Abby Tenna, James Stolt, and Bobby Brown. 3 friends who vanished without a trace. Somehow, I had stumbled across what felt like a missing person case. The Rangers eventually discovered the old campsite. They chalked it up to a bear attack and assumed the friends were dead. At least the families got some closure. Or at least that's what the official story said. But I knew the truth wasn't that simple. Who would believe what I saw out there in the woods? I told my friends about it later, trying to explain the strange voice, the shredded campsite, the creature. They just laughed it off, saying I'd let the Rangers' warning, and my own paranoia, play tricks on me. Maybe I spooked myself into believing the story, but deep down, I knew what I had heard that day wasn't human. And whatever it was still out there, learning, watching, and waiting.
Help me over here.
The Appalachians don't need help to be terrifying. These are among the oldest mountains on Earth, over 480 million years old. The Appalachian Range is a massive, ancient spine that stretches over 2,000 miles, starting as far as Newfoundland and Labrador in Canada, and plunging all the way down to central Alabama. It spans 14 states and crosses international borders, carving out a labyrinth of deep limestone hollers, forgotten coal mines, and cave systems that haven't seen the sun in millennia. When you stand in these woods, you aren't just in a forest. You are standing in a 2,000-mile-long corridor of shadows that have been watching life evolve for 500 million years. These mountains have a memory, and they keep their secrets well. To put that in perspective, they were already ancient before the first dinosaurs ever walked the planet. At one point, they were as tall as the Himalayas, a massive, jagged spine of the world that has been seen worn down into the deep limestone hollers and labyrinth cave systems we see today. These mountains have a memory, and they keep their secrets well. The stats are sobering. In the Great Smoky Mountains Park alone, there are over 100 cold cases of people who had vanished without a trace. Nationwide, thousands remain missing on federal lands. While many of these are surely tragic accidents, falls, hypothermia, or simple disorientation, there is a subset of cases that defy logic. Cases where experienced hikers seem to simply step off the map, leaving nothing behind but sun-bleached gear and a silence that feels intentional. Now, a skeptic will tell you that the mimic isn't a monster, but a biological quirk. And they have a point. Nature is full of tricksters. The common raven and the American crow are master linguists. They can replicate human syllables and even the specific timbre of a person's voice with startling accuracy. Couple that with the scream of a bobcat or the bark of a red fox, sounds that are indistinguishable from a human woman in distress, and you have a recipe for the uncanny valley in the wild. Our brains are hardwired to find human patterns in the noise, and the forest is full of noise. But for those in the paranormal world, birds don't explain the intelligence behind the calls. The factual documentation of mimics in North America doesn't start on a message board. It starts in 1817 on a farm in Adams, Tennessee. The Bell Witch remains the first and most thoroughly documented high-fidelity mimic in our history. For 4 years, hundreds of witnesses, including military leaders and skeptics, reported an entity that could repeat sermons, mimic family members in other rooms, and project voices from thin air. It wasn't just animal noise. It was sentient. It was a mirror. It was the first time we realized that something out there was listening. Whether it's a raven playing a trick, the limestone reflecting sound, or a gray-skinned entity waiting at the tree line, the warning remains the same. In a place as old as Appalachia, the echoes might just be more than an accident. Next time you're on the trail and you hear a familiar voice from the brush, do yourself a favor. Don't look back. And whatever you do, don't answer the call. Thanks for listening to another Lore and Legends episode. I hope you enjoyed it. If you have a story you'd like to share about something lurking in the in-between, or if you just want to say hi, you can reach me at theinbetweenpod.com. And until next time, keep your eyes open for what lies in the in-between.